Hey everybody, we have had a fantastic time here at Asymmetry Studio with Chris and Allison, so thank you guys so much for having us and letting us disrupt your world and all your kids' activities and everything that you guys have going on. So about an hour ago, we completed getting all of the prints and new displays up, and we're going to talk about that, but I think it's really good to focus on you guys to begin with. I mean, you've got such an interesting story. You've been in the industry for a long time. You know, you've cut your teeth on a lot of different levels. And like we were talking about before we started recording here, I think as people look at your style and like looking at this album that's laying out in front of us here, the images are so good that the journey to get there has to be recognized and understood, that this comes from 20 plus years of style development, of lighting, of posing, of learning, of clients, of sales, of products, like all the things to get to where you're at. So that's where I want to start today. Let's just talk like individually about your styles. So let's go ladies first. So Alison, why don't you just kind of talk about like where you began your journey into photography and kind of the lead up to today?
So growing up, my mom always had like a Minolta 35, like all manual camera. Yeah. And it's for the film camera she would take our pictures with as kids. So I have lots of siblings, and my...
How many siblings again?
10 siblings.
Wow.
So I had lots of willing models, and I would like dress up my little sisters and like make them go outside and do photo shoots and things like that. So I always liked photography ever since I was younger. And then I was going to college for computer programming, actually. Okay. Very different. Yeah. And took photography for fun. And then my photography teacher was like, you should really do this. I was like, that's not a real job. So
little did you know.
Here we are now, today, almost like you said, over 20 years later. Been doing photography ever since I graduated college. So.
Yeah, awesome. So in the business here, do you guys have specific roles? Do you cross over? Like,
we have a little bit of crossover.
Not on my part.
Chris is the creative genius. I mean, right now especially, he photographs the majority of the stuff because I'm also doing scheduling, client communication, bookkeeping, marketing, that kind of stuff. Yep. I like still photographing some, but obviously there's not time to do as much of that when I'm doing all the other little pieces around. Yep. So Chris photographs most of it, and then I photograph maybe 25%, if that.
Yeah, and those three little people too that
we gotta balance those
attention.
guys. So right now, because we're the only ones really working our business, we also balance pretty evenly our three little ones. They're all under the age of 7, so they take a lot of time and going back and forth in school and activities.
And as we were talking earlier, and I can't believe you actually got through the whole day yesterday and the evening, because we were out until 10:30, 11 last night. You didn't sleep the night before.
No, so I pulled an all-nighter the night before. Chris stayed home with the kids and got them all in bed, and I came up here to do work. I used to have client work I've been doing in between as well. So we were trying to get the studio all ready for this, and so I texted him about 4:30 in the morning and was like, I'm almost done. I'm going to get there by 5:30 so I can help get the kids' lunches packed and we can get everybody up and off to school.
Oh my goodness. So I think it's really good to note, because there are several people out there that think that this comes easy and that running a business is just going to be like clockwork, and it's going to just begin at 9 and it's going to end comfortably at 5, and then we get to go home and everything's hunky-dory, where you guys really put in the work hard. And during the design process, I would get emails from you at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I think I got a 5 o'clock one.
Yeah, it was a few nights.
Yeah, and I know it was hard for both of you leading up to this, and you did it. And now it's done.
Yeah, feels
and
good.
now you can and the studio looks amazing.
Yeah.
The transformation of the 2 rooms it's hard to even believe that gallery room is the same room after all this stuff is displayed in there, and it's going to be really fun to see how that progresses. So let's move from Allison to Chris. let's talk a little bit about your beginnings in photography, and don't leave out the part about the hat and the tie either.
All right, so senior year of high school, like 2 days after I graduated, I started at this children's portrait studio called Picture People, and you had to be 18 to work. So it was 2 days after my birthday, not after graduation, but you had to be 18 to work there because you developed your own film and prints and everything. So
and you were saying last night you guys did C41
yep,
process.
we did C41 process. And so I was like, my girlfriend at the time was like, oh, you should go work there. You like kids. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So got that job. Spent probably 2 or 3 years photographing kids. And it's not the glamorous, photographer position that, you think of. So we had to wear little beanies with a propeller on top. They're like rainbow beanies. We wore a safari vest. Our name tag was like a giant cardboard camera with like our baby picture in the middle. And then we all had to wear ties because our specialty was we like printed, your baby's pictures on all these different things. Yeah. And so we had to have a tie with our baby picture on it. So yeah, it was super embarrassing to work there.
But it must make you really appreciate where you're at now.
Oh yeah, and at that point in time, like I could not have imagined that this is where I would end up because when I was in college, I was a kind of double major in psychology and drawing and painting, and so I started working here at this studio and was like, oh, this is cool. I get to shoot with a Mamiya medium format, and so that just led to staying late, working, goofing around, trying different stuff with the camera, and processing things. And I was like, I'll take some photography classes in college, and then maybe like a year and a half, 2 years into it, I was like, I think I'm going to switch, and so switched to photography, and then kind of went from there. But it didn't, my next photography job didn't get any better because I worked at Glamour Shots for another 3 or 4 years after that. So I don't know which one was.
That's one where you'd get in trouble for moving the lights, right?
Both places. You weren't supposed to touch the lights, or
really?
You weren't supposed to. Yeah, you weren't allowed to change anything. Everything had to be shot, F11.
So you're the rebel who would go change it anyway.
Yes, and so I would just change stuff, disconnect things, and whatever. We'd go take pictures. If we got somebody younger in that wasn't doing like risque American flag portraits for their husband, we'd be like, well, let's go to this service elevator in the back of the mall, and we'd do some like fashion type stuff, what I thought was fashion back then. And
yeah.
So it was fun. So like throughout the entire early part of my photography career, I guess, I got to just kind of play around and still get paid a small amount of money for it. So I think that was what helped. It helped keep me engaged because if I had been in college and just going, working through photography classes in college, that beats a lot of people down. Having your work criticized every single day you go in and you've got to put it up there and have to explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. That can eat away.
Yeah, absolutely.
At your creativity and your confidence a lot. So I think having those two jobs just kind of was like, just go to work, goof off.
Well, and there's no replacement for experience. Whether you look back now and you're like, I can't believe that I had to wear a beanie with a propeller on it, but you learn along the way, and sometimes it's for the good and sometimes it's for the bad, but you learn. And you figure out, I do want to do this, or absolutely not. I really want something different. So that's good. So then I know that you two met at a certain point at a studio. So when did you join that studio? Like, did you both kind of come at the same time, or?
I started about a year before Chris, so pretty
Okay.
close to the same time.
Did you have to train him?
Then, yeah, I was kind of his boss. So
I think she still is.
no, but yeah, so I started. So I also worked as kind of a lower end portrait studio. It wasn't a chain. It was a mom and pop one. And then this next studio, this was the first time, was like a nice high end studio. First time for either one of us to work in a really expensive place. And so I started there, and then about a year later, Chris got hired on. And then a few years later, got married, had some kids, all that stuff, and then decided to do this on our own.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit in the intro video, but you started this business in 2020.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge we weren't expecting when we decided to do our own thing, but it actually ended up, I think, working out okay because, like we kind of talked about, during all that time, there were so many experiences that people couldn't do that the one-on-one was safer. You know, it was just us and a client, and you could easily keep your distance with the telephoto lens. So, I mean, we all wore masks and we're safe about it in between shots and stuff. So I think it kind of actually oddly worked out well because people really wanted to do something. We're so tired of not doing things.
Well, and we photograph mostly seniors, and I think that's such a, at least here in the South and in Texas, for us, like that's such a big rite of passage is doing these big, elaborate senior sessions, and they already lost their proms and homecomings and all the fun stuff that you look forward to as being a senior. They lost all that, so it was just kind of nice that, okay, well, here's at least one thing that they can do that will help, mark that this is your final year in high school. So I think that helped in some strange way.
So as worried as we were about it because everything was so uncertain, and then opening a new business, it still, I think, ended up kind of working out in the end for that reason.
And from the lab perspective, we saw tremendous growth in the tail end of 2020, 21, 22, for photography studios, for portrait studios, industry wide. If you were business focused and sales focused, like there was tremendous growth that was happening in there. So, inadvertently and probably accidentally, that may have worked out to your favor, honestly. So the studio that you worked for, that was a retirement, closed up. You guys decided to do your own, okay? So we get this space. And you started in the room that we're in now, which is your camera room. But during that time, it was your reception room, it was your dressing room, it was your camera room, it was your sales space.
Yeah, it was everything.
It was everything. It was your storage, it was all the things.
Yes, we don't even have a closet.
It's that corner.
And then eventually you added on the gallery room first, and that became kind of storage. And then you added on the dressing room, right? And then the rest of the space is all shared. So your front entryway is shared space. You have some suite mates, and then you kind of have your area in the back of the building is kind of what we're doing. And I know that we'll talk about that through the tours. So this is all new with having the gallery space. And you have really been primarily focused, and correct me if I'm wrong, on more album sales for your primarily. So now you have these big, beautiful displays. So how is that going to impact how you interact with clients? I know the answer to this to a point, but I'm interested to hear you guys' perspective on that.
I mean, even without having the displays shown, I would still use Studio a lot to show wall portraits, and I would try to encourage people to take pictures of their own walls. It's hard to get them to do that sometimes, even though you think it's easy, that they don't get around to it, whatever the case may be. But having the actual images on the walls now, after every single session, I'm going to be able to go back and show them, like as we're setting up their appointment, be thinking about if you want to do something like this. They can start planting that seed before they come back, and I'm trying to show them a grouping in Studio. So that part will be nice because they can see it on the wall before I'm showing them virtually their images during the presentation.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to walk through in our next interview here, piece by piece, like grouping by grouping, but just so we kind of know like order of business. So you're obviously scheduling your appointment, you're coming in, you're doing probably a lot of clothing consult, helping design the session, doing the actual session, and then after that, what is your process, or what will the process be now that you have the new gallery space?
So typically the process would be after the session, we go and schedule the reveal appointment because we don't do them the same day or immediately after. We take some editing time. Yeah. And
because
then
somebody overshoots a little bit.
Maybe a tiny bit. So we would schedule our next reveal appointment, and then I would go over all the products with them. I don't like to just hand somebody a price list and say, okay, now come back. Like I will show them, let them hold it, let them feel it, let them touch it. And so right now all we had is albums as far as feeling, touching, a couple canvases around the studio, but nothing too much. So this time we'll be able to be like, okay, let's walk to this room, and this is an acrylic, and these are canvas, and these are frame prints. You know, lots of things, so that way they can be overwhelmed before they come back.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, they'll get overwhelmed by the images all over again. So it kind of at least spreads that out, so it's not so much to take in.
Yeah, and when people are here, it will be easy for them to experience just kind of on their own too, without you guys directing, because now you're going to come in, you're going to see the grouping up front. There's images in the dressing room, which we strategically put products in there, that they can view from the side, and then the gallery space. It's going to be really fun to see, how this really changes your business.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about having images in the dressing room, and I always have albums in there, but also putting some of the small products in there, is that's a space where they can look at it without us knowing they're looking at it.
Yeah, because I think people
feel like,
they're like, oh, they're watching me, and like I don't want to flip through this book, and so I think them being able to just be in there, and the mom will be like, oh, look at that, and so I think that's a real smart move.
Yeah, just silent sales. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you again for having us. You two are a lovely couple. And we're looking forward to another fun evening with you tonight. So in our next interview, we're going to go through and we're going to talk about all the groupings individually.